Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my 100 book recommendations. I foolishly, apparently, thought that I could film a 100 book recommendations in a reasonable amount of time. Turns out I can't, so I've split it into 2 videos. Yesterday I shared historical fiction, mystery suspense, classics, and fantasy sci-fi. I shared recommendations for those. Today we're going to be doing YA, middle grade, and nonfiction. So if you want suggestions for the other genres, go watch yesterday's video and leave me some suggestions in the comments as well. Today we'll be talking about these genres, and I will have timestamps in the description in case you want to skip to a certain section. I just barely finished filming the first 50, and I feel like I was talking really fast because I was trying to make it work and it just didn't work. Actually, I think I didn't even quite get 50 in the first one. That was 46 recommendations, so we're gonna do the other 54 right now. And apparently I need to talk a little bit less about them. So we're gonna start with YA. My first recommendation is The Giver. I read this one only a couple of years ago. I know lots of people have to read it in high school, but it is a dystopian book where the world is perfect, but not so much. And our main character Jonas finds out pretty quickly that things are not perfect, and he has to decide what he's gonna do about it. Okay, moving on. I'm not used to trying to like talk so little about the books. That's hard. I have The Hunger Games. I actually I watched the movie first and then read the book, and it like made so many things click. The movie, so much of what happens in the book takes place in the characters' heads that the movie didn't make a lot of sense, and this just like made everything make more sense. So it's about a group of kids that get picked. I don't know, is there like 10-ish of them? And the last one alive wins. It's kind of morbid, but reading the thoughts behind it all kind of helps. Next up is something, I call it like steampunk. I probably could have put it in fantasy or sci-fi as well. This is Incarceron. It feels steampunky. And this is a world where our main character, her father, is the warden for this prison, and even the slogan right here is "The prison is alive." So yeah, this is the first book in a duology. Then I have What I Carry. This is a fiction story about a girl who is going to age out of foster care in a year, and she really wants to have a good record. She wants to give herself the most opportunities as possible because she knows the stats about kids that age out of foster care, but it's to the detriment of her. It's where she hasn't made any relationships with people, and things change for her last year of foster care. Then I want to recommend A Night Divided. It is a historical fiction book about when the Berlin Wall went up and a family was kind of like trapped on either side, and it's about their story trying to get back to each other. That one is so powerful. Oh, okay. And then one that I'm going to recommend, but I honestly don't remember much about. So in high school, I read the book I Am David. And then a few years ago, a friend said it was one of her favorite books. And I was like, really? Because all I remember from high school is a teacher getting us to like each take a paragraph to read. So you're like worrying about what words are in your paragraph and if you're going to mess up your words, and you're not paying attention to what's going on. So I didn't remember the book at all. So I reread it a couple years ago. Really enjoyed it. And now trying to think about what it was about, I don't really remember. I think it was like post-World War II. There's a kid, or during World War II, that escaped from a concentration camp. I'm not really sure what happened, but I remember it being very good. Apparently I need to reread it yet again. Okay, and then I have Goose Girl. This is a retelling, a fairy tale retelling. Our main character is a princess who is going to a different land. I think she's going to marry the prince somewhere, but her lady in waiting actually has a plot to dethrone her and take her place. The preschooler is just like running around upstairs. Yeah, and so, okay, it's not a herd of elephants. She ends up, our main character then ends up being the goose girl, trying to figure out how to tell the truth of what has happened. Then, okay, apparently I didn't realize I had 4 Sandersons on here. I have The Arithmetist. I think this is my last Sanderson from this 100 books stack. This one's sometimes categorized as middle grade. I don't know, I feel like it's kind of YA-ish. Our main character Joel wants to be a arithmetist, and this book is so fascinating because what Sanderson has done is he has made a world where there are chalklings, like chalk creatures, that you can draw, and then you make a circle around yourself with defense lines. Throughout the book there's all sorts of different drawings, different kinds of defense. I feel like Sanderson always just goes above and beyond with his books, and yeah, so Joel really wants to be a arithmetist, and things are going down in the school, and yeah, highly recommend that one. Don't hear enough people talking about that one. I gotta go faster. Okay, next up is The False Prince. In this one, we've got 4 orphans who have been purchased by this man, and he wants for them to train to take the place of the prince who disappeared or died, and yeah, and it's kind of like they're learning to be the prince and their fight to win over the other guy that's involved, or the other guys that are involved. Okay, I may have tried to bribe the preschooler with some M&Ms so he stops running around quite so much. The next one is Lockwood & Co. The Screaming Staircase is book number 1. This is in England, but in a time where, I don't know, ghosts are a normal thing, I guess, and mostly only kids can see the ghosts. So our main characters are, whatever they're called, they fight the ghosts, they get rid of them. Yeah, I don't know, it was an interesting concept. I don't know if I'm going to finish the series, but I would recommend book 1. Another retelling that I enjoyed is Hunted. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Yeah, it was well done. I tried reading another book in that series by that same author and I didn't enjoy it, but I would recommend Hunted. And then I've got Olivia Twist. This is an Oliver Twist retelling, but if Oliver Twist was a girl, I enjoyed that one. The Inheritance Games. This is a story where our main character lives in her car. Honestly, she's a high school senior, lives in her car, and then gets told that she has been given this inheritance by this like billionaire or something, and she's never even met the guy, and I really enjoyed that one. I still haven't read book 2. And my last YA is Dust. This is a Peter Pan retelling. Apparently I just went for a bunch of retellings here at the end, or twist, I guess. It's not really a retelling, where our main character, she is a fairy. She has fairy dust all the time, and she's trying to find her brother who disappeared, and she comes across Peter Pan in London. Okay, now we are on to middle grade. I do have a separate middle grade recommendations video from the beginning of the year. Some of these will be on there, but some of these will be different, and that will have some different ones probably. So if you want more middle grade recommendations, I've got a video for that. Let's go in my order here. My first recommendation is going to be On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. This is a middle grade fantasy series that I am so terrible at explaining, but it is so powerful. There's 4 books in the series. I highly, highly recommend it. If for nothing else, you need to read it so that you know why toothy cows are so scary. If you're going to read any middle grade series, please read this one. Okay, then we're going really retro here. I guess this could have been on the classics list. Little House on the Prairie. You guys, we listened to these as a family a few years ago, and I loved it. I loved it. I could never finish the series when I was younger when I tried to read it, but I so enjoyed it. Just learning about life on the prairies. This is book 3 in the series, actually. I don't know, I prefer the first few. This one's my favorite though. A book that we had to read in grade 5 that stuck with me is Bridge to Terabithia. If you want to have a broken heart, read this book. We follow friends. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so sad, but it's a good book. Okay, on to something less sad. where is it here? We have Book Scavenger. This is in a world where there is a guy who has created a book scavenger hunt. So you go onto the website, there's clues, you solve the riddle, and then there's a book left there, and then you have to hide a book and write clues. And it just really speaks to my bookish heart. It is a real thing on a small scale, but I wish it was a real thing on as large of a scale as it is in this book. Then we've got Pictures of Hollis Woods. This is a sad story, but so good. This is like 5+ stars. About a girl named Hollis Woods. She's in foster care, and she ends up going into this home with this old lady who's slowly losing her memory, and she's trying to cover for the old lady because she really likes her. Yeah, but at the same time there's some things from her past that are coming up. This one's such a good one. One of my favorite middle grade books is The Wednesday Wars. It is set during the Vietnam War, but it's set in the States. We follow a 7th grade boy with, like, I don't know if it's the best name or possibly the worst name. His name is Halling Hood. Yeah, I still don't know if that's like an awesome name or a terrible one. It's a little bit of both. It's awesome for a fictional character, but terrible for a real person. Yeah, and the audiobooks for that book and then the companion books are so good. They're like hard-hitting, but funny. So good. Then I have Number the Stars. This is a World War II historical fiction story. Very, very short story about a girl who is not a Jew but has a Jewish friend and how they help her out. And then I've got a couple free verse novels on here. One of them is Maybe. I think this was my first free verse novel experience. It's pretty much like Little House on the Prairie, but free verse and not quite so happy. It's a little bit more real, I think. Our main character goes and lives with a family. She's gonna go help with childcare, and it's a really, really hard winter. And yeah, it's really good. Then we've got my other, here it is. My other free verse novel is Little Dog Lost. It's all about a boy that wants a dog and a dog that is lost, and their journey to each other. On a very different note, I really didn't do this in any kind of order. I have Keeper of the Lost Cities. This is book 1 in the series. We follow a girl named Sophie who's always been a bit of an outcast in the life, and then she finds out right at the beginning of the book that she's actually not human. She's an elf, and that's why she has telepathic powers. And yeah, we actually have the annotated version, which if you've read Keeper of the Lost Cities before, I would highly recommend seeing if you can get your hands on the annotated version. Shannon Messenger has like written notes about like mistakes that she made, and like funny things that she was thinking as she was writing it. It's a really cool addition to the book. Okay, one of my favorite middle grades is Rain Rain. This is by Anne M. Martin, who wrote The Babysitter's Club, but we follow a girl who has Asperger's and is obsessed with homonyms and really likes her routines, and things don't go according to plan when her dog runs away. Then I'm going to mention Echo. That is a mostly historical fiction, slightly magic realism. We follow a harmonica that goes to a bunch of different kids over time, and we see their historical fiction accounts of what's going on during that time. The audiobook is fantastic. The music that is added is amazing. Highly recommend that one. Then, do you ever like look for a book and then realize you have no idea where it is? I know I own a copy of Sweep, the story of a girl and her monster, and I can't find it. It is a historical fiction book about a chimney sweep, and I learned lots of historical elements about chimney sweeps. It was really good. But then there's the fantasy twist where she has a coal monster friend. Yeah, that one made me tear up as well. Oh, I got 2 more free verse novels on here. Closer to Nowhere. In this one we follow a boy who goes to live with his aunt and uncle and cousin while his mom died and his dad is in prison, and his cousin doesn't really want him there. It flips back and forth between both cousins' point of view. So well done. Very hard-hitting, but really well done. And then the other one is Alone. It is a story where a girl wakes up and her entire town and area is gone. It's kind of like Home Alone, you know, when you, like, I made my family disappear, but her entire town has disappeared and she doesn't know what's going on. Okay, then we've got The Mysterious Benedict Society. I feel like most people, if you like middle grade, have read this already, but it is a society that is formed when there is an ad in the newspaper looking for children with special talents, and it involves a boy named George Washington who goes by the nickname Sticky, a girl that always carries a bucket with a bunch of random things, and a girl named Constance that's very short that has some kind of mystery, and then our main character is a boy named Rennie Muldoon, and yeah, and they form the Mysterious Benedict Society. Okay, then I have Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. Actually, Shannon Hale was also on here before. She's the one that wrote The Goose Girl. This is a story about a village that it's pretty much like a mining village is what it is, but something happens where a girl is going to be chosen from the girls from the village. They're all very like backwoods kind of people pretty much, and all the girls are going to be trained to be a princess, and then the prince is going to select one. And it's funny to see these girls kind of try to be a princess. Some of them don't really want to be, and then there's like some fantasy elements. I really enjoyed this book, and it is actually a series, and I've never continued it. Okay, then I've got Pax. It is a story about a boy who has a fox, and then he needs to go live with his grandpa, and his dad releases the fox, and then we follow the fox as he tries to go from being a pet to living in the wild. And I mean, how can a fiction story about a fox be emotional? I don't know, but it is. And then I have Jane Austen Investigates. It's like Jane Austen as a child and kind of stumbling across mysteries. In my previous video, part 1, I shared 2 middle grade murder mystery stories. So I put those in the mystery section, but this one is just mystery, no murder involved. So I wanted to put this one in the middle grade section. Okay, and then a funny book is Fortunately the Milk. I do not like any other Neil Gaiman book I've ever read, but this one is hilarious, and he narrates the audio so well. It's about a man who goes to get milk for his kids' cereal because they're out and they're hungry, and honestly he got distracted by talking to a friend, so he makes up this story to his kids when he gets back about what he all saw and why he is late bringing back the milk. There's UFOs, there's dinosaurs, there's all sorts of things that occurred that made him late to bring the milk. One I read a while ago is Green Glass House. It takes place in a hotel for, I just totally like forgot the word. Well, there's a word and I'm just blanking on it, but it's like for thieves or whatever, pretty much. This is really gonna bother me. Do you guys ever forget words? Like they were there and then they're gone. And it takes place over Christmas, so it's a really good one for December. And then kind of in that same vein, I feel like this has similar vibes. This is Winter House, also takes place over Christmas. And we follow a girl named Elizabeth who goes to Winter House for the Christmas season and comes across some mysteries. There's a lot of word puzzles in here. Elizabeth likes lists. There's some fun things. Even if you check out the beginning of the chapter, each chapter kind of has like a word puzzle going on right in the title. I think it's very creative. And then my last middle grade, I think, yes, that's my last middle grade, but it's technically, I wouldn't really recommend this to middle grade. It is Forever or a Long, Long Time. It is the story of a brother and sister who grew up in foster care, were adopted, and this really just talks a lot about the trauma that they still deal with. So it's kind of like written with middle grade characters, but I think it's more written for adults. Really recommend that one. Okay, now we're going to move into nonfiction. I have a couple just general nonfiction, and then we're going to do Christian nonfiction. My first nonfiction is Reading Magic. Why reading aloud to our children will change their lives forever. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. This book just talks about the importance of reading aloud to our kids. I've read this one a few times and have really enjoyed it. Then I'm going to mention The Lost Spells. This is a poetry collection, a nature poetry collection I read in October and so enjoyed. It's also really gorgeous, has really beautiful illustrations. Then I'm going to say At Home in the World. It's been a while since I read this one by Tish Oxenrider, but it's the story of when her family traveled the world in a year. And talking as someone that likes to travel, or I like to be at places, I don't like to actually travel, but it was cool to see all the glimpses of different places. The way she talked about where they stayed in, oh shoot, where was it? Was it Croatia? I think it was Croatia. They like stayed in this like old monastery. It just makes me want to go there. So if you have like Wanderlust, that's a really good book. And then my last one is The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. She does a lot of like personality tests, but or writes a lot about personality stuff, I guess. I really enjoyed the four tendencies because it talks about upholder, something, questioner, and rebel. And I have found that I'm a rebel, which just means that I don't always like to do the things that I set out for myself, nor the things that other people tell me to do. I'm also partially a questioner, which means if I know the reasoning behind something, I can do something. It has helped me to realize why I struggle with doing things even when I want to do them. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Okay, we gotta keep going. This is just another really long video. Wow, who knew recommending 100 books was gonna take so long? Now, last section, we are into the Christian nonfiction. I'm gonna go with 2 biographies to start. Ugh, just a mess here. The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. This is so, I don't know how many times I've read this story. It is so good. It is a story of her and her dad and her sister when they hid Jews during World War II. They were watchmakers and they hid them and their time in the concentration camp, and it is amazing. Okay, another biography, very different. This is Love Without Borders by Angela Braniff. This is the story of their having biological children normally, adopting domestically, adopting internationally, and they adopted embryos and then had kids biologically that way. Biologically? I don't even know the wording. Anyway, and it talks about just God's hand in all of their stories. It's crazy. Yeah, recommend that one. And then the rest here are just random, not biographies, but yeah, we'll get into this here. Okay, first one is The Prodigal God. So this talks about the story of the prodigal son and how it's really not the son that was lost that we normally think of, but it's both sons, especially the older son, because he didn't realize his lostness. Such a good book. It's very small, quick to read, but so impactful. Radical. I'm going to be doing a video on my homeschool channel probably shortly after this video goes live. I can't remember the exact date. I'm going to be recommending the 5 books that have changed my life, and this is one of them. This is the book that like pushed us to adopt. Next is The Art of Neighboring. This is all about being a good neighbor to those around you and building relationships so that you can be a witness to people. So good. Oh, okay, then we've got Unoffendable by Brant Hansen. Yeah, I think in this world, it's easy to be offended instantly, for sure. That book, I really enjoyed that one. Gospel Fluency by Jeff Vanderstelt. Oh, this book, it really made me realize how much I need to grow. It talks about like weaving the gospel into your everyday language. And yeah, just something I really need to do. Then I've got Messy, Beautiful Friendship. It is the story about being a good friend, but also like it's messy and how to do it. And I really enjoyed that one. All Along You Were Blooming. This is a beautiful poetry collection. Like it's beautifully illustrated. I really like the poetry. Love this one all around. Listen, Love, Repeat. Kind of like Messy, Beautiful Friendship. This one is all about being a good friend, and like this gives you a lot of practical things and ways to be a good friend to others. Awaking Wonder. This subtitle is Opening Your Child's Heart to the Beauty of Learning, and that is exactly what this is. It's all about not necessarily educating. It's not just for homeschoolers, but it's just teaching your children to love learning and finding the beauty around them. Then I have Women of the Word by Jen Wilkin. This is a great teaching tool to teach you how to study, read the Bible. And yeah, assuming I didn't like forget any off the list, this should be number 100. And that is You and Me Forever by Francis and Lisa Chan. This one, the subtitle is Marriage in Light of Eternity. And honestly, they just passed off a life book as a marriage book. It's all about life in light of eternity. And if you've seen the Francis Chan video where he's got the huge rope and the tiny little bit is the part that you live on earth and the rest is eternity, this is how he teaches you how to live that tiny little piece so that we have the best life in eternity. That's probably not the right wording. I've read this one multiple times. really enjoyed it. My copy is very highlighted. So there you go. If you have some YA, middle grade, and nonfiction recommendations for me, leave them in the comments below. And if you want to see part 1 of this video, check out that video and leave me recommendations for that as well. Okay, I was not nearly as fast with that as I thought I was going to be, but there are my 100 in 2 different part recommendations. Thanks for watching, guys.